What's the crack? Connor O'Driscoll here, known on Twitch as CCOONNOOR. Don't forget the third R. Here I am with Sean and Ian in the airport before heading off to Portugal to film my first ever vlog. We arrive at 10 PM in the evening and find a very nice bar near our Airbnb that serves food till 2 AM, and the cocktails were also magnifico! The next morning we set off on our sightseeing tour of Lisbon before heading to watch Portugal's first game of the Euro 2024 Championships in the Euro Village. By the way, as this is my first vlog, I would really appreciate any advice in the comments and about how I can improve it. I won't get offended, just be honest. Anyway, I'll let you watch this sped up footage with some lovely music in the background. Don't worry, we'll get to the poker hands shortly. Sounds yours like a shot.
That's not how you do it, huh?
So that was the end of our sightseeing in Lisbon, and it was off to the Euro Village to watch Portugal's first game in the Euros. The next morning, it was off to play some poker. We had to get down to Setúbal to the ferry across to the peninsula where the casino TROIA was. There's Joe telling me to make sure that he's in the vlog. There's a couple of Limerick lads on the right there. The TROIA resort included a lot of lovely bars and restaurants and activities such as horse riding and kayaking, and 2 beautiful hotels. The boat took around 20 minutes and we went straight to the hotel to check out our amazing pad before heading over to the casino. So I get to the casino and meet a couple of familiar faces from the Irish poker tour circuit that had won their packages on Paddy Power Poker. Here's Sia Brown and Dara O'Carney telling me some bad beat stories. I had to turn away until they had finished these stories because, you know, nobody likes a bad beat story. And then when I turned back, they proceed to talk about how great I am and how they watch my Twitch stream constantly and they think that it's the best content out there and that I'm a great player, etc, etc. I also met Tanya Masters, who is the IPT ambassador and host of the ladies game at all the IPT events. She also runs satellites to these games on Paddy Power. To my surprise, she said exactly the same thing as Sia and Dara about my Twitch stream. I didn't bring a microphone so I can't prove it, but I don't bluff, so you have to believe me. Anyway, let's get into the hands. First hand of note, I'm dealt King Queen off under the gun at 200 big blind, opener up to 500. Paul Karras calls in the small blind and big blind folds. Flop comes ace 9 3 all spades. Checks over to us and we bet very small, 300. Turn 7 of spades, he checks. We decide to bet 1,000 here now and he quickly folds ace jack offsuit face up. We show the queen and take down the pot. Next hand I'm going to show you in this €150 opener. Blinds are up to 400. There is a raise to 800 under the gun, a call in the cutoff, and we find pocket kings in the big blind. We decide on what size we want to make it, and we squeeze it up to 3.6k. Eventually the under the gun player folds. The cutoff player now asks me how much I have. I show him my stack, and eventually he makes the fold. The very next hand we are dealt 2 9s in the small blind, and the hijack raises up to 800. Paul goes all in for 12,400 in the cutoff. 30 big blinds. I think most players here will 3-bet to a smaller size with their strong hands such as 10s and higher. So I decided that I'm either flipping, which I'm happy with, or dominating, which turns out to be the case as he shows 2 8s. I can't show you the next bit of footage because Carrie gives me the finger while getting the massage with his top off, so this is a good time to remind you that every Tuesday I host a €1,000 added satellite for Killarney. If you qualify through this satellite, you are entered into an exclusive 5k free roll at the event, and you will probably be featured in the next vlog. On to the next hand. We are gaining momentum and open up the 7-10 of clubs in the cutoff. Loose player in the small blind calls, and the big blind comes along as well. Flop is the 3-4-6 with 2 clubs. We have a very strong hand here with a gut shot, 2 overcards, and a flush draw, but we are up against a big blind range here that in general will flop very well, as well as a small blind range who has full coverage of all the sets, so I decide to go ahead and check it back. This way, if we do hit our hand, it will be very well disguised, and we could maybe induce some bluffs from the blinds. After checking back, we smash the turn and hit the queen of clubs. The small blind now leads out for 800. The big blind goes deep into the tank before flat calling. We decide now is a good time to raise it up. At least one of these players, I believe, is going to call us for all the reasons I said about checking back the flop. So we raise it up to 3,000. Small blind thinks for a while and gets out of the way. And now the big blind does something very unorthodox and surprising to me and clicks it up to 8,000. When he does this, he's left with about 9,000 behind. I just don't see any way in hell he's ever folding. I am a bit concerned that we're beat here, but there is a ton of value that we beat. Sets, straights, smaller flushes. He is in the big blind with a very wide range. So that little concern that we're beat quickly vanishes as I put all my chips in. He quickly makes the call, asks if I have a flush, to which I reply yes and show my hand. He has a set of 4s, and this is a huge pot at the 400 big blind level. Can we hold? Nope. Board pairs with 2 of clubs on the river is devastating my stack and my heart, but not too much time to mourn as we are dealt another playable hand straight away. Queen Jack of Spades in the hijack. Under the gun Portuguese guy who celebrated when my opponent hit the full house on the river in the previous hand for some reason. Opens to 1100, which is a slightly larger than norm open, but we are looking to gamble it up now that we are short and the registration period is still open. Loose player on the button comes along and everyone else folds. Flop comes 10-8-6 with 2 spades. We have hit another huge combo draw. Gutter ball, flush draw, and 2 overs again. This time under the gun checks, we bet 1,500 and get 2 calls. Off to the 8 turn, which isn't the best considering they both have 8x in their range, but that's about all they really have as played, so I YOLO it in. Button folds quite quickly and the under the gun player makes the call with 7s. I like the call to be honest, but I like the river too. We hit one of our 4.6 million outs and double up. I play a few small pots after this, including one where the loose player calls my river bet with 3rd pair, and this queen 10 of clubs where we just take it down with a c bet on the flop. I probably shouldn't bother showing you this one, but again, first vlog, Make sure you give me your thoughts and advice for the next one in the comments. Next big hand I play is ace queen offsuit under the gun. By the way, I know every video on YouTube says this at some point, but if you could like this video and hit the subscribe button, I would massively appreciate it, way more than you think. It's much harder than it looks to make videos. Anyway, I open it up to 1,300 at 600 big blind under the gun, and it folds around to the big blind, who's a young Portuguese fellow who makes the call. To the flop, 5, 2, 8, 2 hearts. On these disconnected boards, we have a huge advantage versus big blind from any position, but especially when we are under the gun with a much tighter opening range. So we decide to size up to 2,200 into 3,500, which is around 60%. Probably should have gone bigger actually. Turn is the 3 of spades, and we have turned a little bit more equity and decide to keep pushing my advantage and bet big again, 6,500 into 7,900. River is the card in the deck that we want to see the most. Absolute bink. And when the big blind checks to us again, we are now going to value bet all in, hoping for a call, which he does with ace deuce. Guess we needed that queen to win this pot. And I guess if this was like a king river or a jack or maybe some other blanks, I would have went for it. So he was on the right track, but we did hit the river, which is obviously quite lucky. Speaking of luck, we call a shove a little while later with pocket aces, and we get it in against the king 9 offsuit. He's quite short, so can't really blame him for punting it in, and we end up holding here as well. After this, we're pretty card dead for a while until the blinds go up to 500, 1,000. We're dealt 2 kings in the cutoff, and the under the gun player makes it 3,500 off of a 22 big blind stack. So he 3.5x's under the gun off 22 blinds. I perceive this to be very strong, and we want to just get the money in with him now. There's some bigger stacks behind, so we bump it up to 8,000 instead of just shoving it in, and it folds all the way around to him, and he does not hesitate to just shove. And of course, what would you do? Obviously we call, and we get the kings in against ace queen, and we hold, which is nice. We're gaining a bit of momentum now, and the very next hand we get dealt aces. We open it to 2,000 in the hijack, and the loose player in the cutoff makes the call. The flop comes down, 10 of hearts, 2 of diamonds, 8 of hearts. We bet 3,000, and he makes the call. Turn is the jack of diamonds. It goes check, check, and the river is the 4 of hearts. We decide to go for the full pot size bet 12,500, and he deliberates and makes the call, and then he finds it funny. I have been hitting hands in fairness, and there's a bit of banter at the table. I'll let you listen in. Call. Easy with aces. And that's it for part 1, lads. I hope you enjoyed it. I do final table this tournament, so make sure you tune in for part 2, where I'll also be playing the €700 main event.